Good morning, everyone. So today we'll be doing a revision of the human excretory system. As far as this chapter is concerned, I'll be doing a brief overview about the structure and the function of the kidney, the process of urine formation, the location of the kidney and the other associated excretory structures. So let us now begin with this. Let us first focus on the kidneys, which are the chief excretory organs in humans. Now, as far as kidneys are concerned, they are attached to the dorsal body wall located between the 12th thoracic and the 3rd lumbar vertebra. I repeat, their location is between the 12th thoracic and the 3rd lumbar vertebra. So what you see highlighted on my screen right now in green is the 12th thoracic vertebra. Then you have this one is the 3rd lumbar vertebra. So the location of the kidneys is between the 12th thoracic and the 3rd lumbar vertebra. Now, as far as kidneys are concerned, as I mentioned, that they are located attached to the dorsal body wall, located behind the peritoneum. Peritoneum is basically a covering around the abdominal organs. So this abdominal organs are separated from each other basically by this covering that is called as the peritoneum. So kidneys lie behind the peritoneum, and hence the position of the kidneys is said to be retroperitoneal. So let us again have an overview of the position of the kidney, located in the abdominal cavity, attached to the dorsal body wall, between the 12th thoracic and the 3rd lumbar vertebra, and behind the peritoneum. That is, they are said to be retroperitoneal in position. So that is about the positioning of the kidneys. So you all can see this is the anterior or the front view, the ventral side of the abdominal cavity. On the right side, in the ventral part of the abdominal cavity, is the liver, which is the largest gland in the body. So right behind the liver is present the right kidney. So to accommodate the liver, you can see very clearly here, the right kidney is slightly lower in position than the left one. I repeat, to accommodate the liver, the right kidney is slightly below the left one. So the reason why the right kidney is slightly lower in position is due to the presence of the liver. On the other hand, the left kidney is slightly behind than the right one. So it will be something like this. So this is my left hand. Ye dekho aise. The right kidney is slightly lower in position, but slightly in front. The left kidney is slightly higher up, but it is behind. The reason is to accommodate the stomach on the front side. So the left kidney is slightly behind the right one in order to accommodate the stomach. Now, the kidney has two margins. Each kidney has two margins. If we isolate this here, we can see clearly each kidney has two margins. The outer margin is convex while the inner margin is concave. Okay. On the inner margin, in the median region of the inner margin, there is a notch. And that notch is called as the hilum or the hilus. I repeat, the notch that is present on the inner margin is called as the hilum. Now, the notch is the region through which the renal artery enters in, while the renal vein and the ureter emerges out. You can see a portion of the ureter emerging out through the notch, that is the hilum, present on the inner margin of the left kidney. So this is the left kidney. Its positioning would be somewhat like this. So here you can see the right kidney that is entering into the kidney at the notch. The right kidney is the branch of the dorsal aorta. This is the dorsal aorta, and the branch of that dorsal aorta is the renal artery. The renal artery enters each kidney at the hilum or the hilus. So this is the renal vein. The renal vein is exiting the kidney through the hilus, and it joins into the inferior vena cava that will then carry the blood back towards the right atrium of the heart. So coming back to the shape of the kidney, kidneys are somewhat bean shaped. The dimensions are 10 centimeters long, about 6 centimeters wide and 4 centimeters in breadth. Okay. Sorry, it is 10 centimeters long, 6 centimeters wide and 4 centimeters in thickness. Now, as far as the shape is concerned, the outer margin is convex and the inner margin is concave. The inner concave margin shows presence of a notch. That notch is called as the hilum. I repeat, that notch is called as the hilum. Through this hilum, the renal artery enters into each kidney, while the renal vein and the ureter leave each kidney. So now here you all see the chief components of the urinary system: a pair of kidneys, a pair of ureters, a urinary bladder, and the urethra. Now, so these are the chief components of the excretory system in humans. Now, as far as urethra is concerned, in males it is longer, about 16 to 20 centimeters long, whereas in females it is shorter, about 4 centimeters long. In males, the urethra is also called as the urogenital duct because it serves as the passage for the urine as well as the semen, whereas in females, it is only known as the urinary duct because it serves as the passage for urine only. Now, as you all can see, the pair of ureters do not run down straight and open into the urinary bladder, but they open into the bladder obliquely from behind. You can see this here, how the ureters open into the urinary bladder. They run obliquely down and open from behind into the urinary bladder. This oblique fashion of opening of the ureters into the bladder prevents the backflow of urine when the ureter constricts, when the urinary bladder constricts. So at the time of constriction of the bladder, there is a possibility of backward flow of urine into the ureters. So to eliminate out that possibility, the ureters open obliquely into the urinary bladder. So I repeat again that the ureters open in an oblique fashion in the urinary bladder in order to prevent the backflow of urine when the urinary bladder constricts or contracts for the expulsion of urine at the time of micturition. Micturition is basically the process of expulsion of urine from the urinary bladder out of the body via the urethra. Here is one ureter that I have isolated, and you can clearly see that the ureter shows presence of smooth muscles, which basically help in generating the wave of peristalsis, the process by which urine is carried from the kidneys up to the urinary bladder. So you can see how the ureters are running obliquely in this section here. And the ureter throughout in its internal wall will be lined by smooth muscles, which help in generating the wave of peristalsis. Now coming to the position of the urinary bladder, if I show you the position of the urinary bladder by just hiding one pubic bone or one hip bone here. Yes. So you can see here, it is located in the lower abdomen, just behind the pubic symphysis. I repeat, the urinary bladder is located in the lower part of the abdomen, just behind the pubic symphysis. Now, the ureter runs obliquely and opens into the urinary bladder from behind. So I've just taken a slice of the urinary bladder just to show you the internal structures. Internally, the urinary bladder is lined by a very thick layer of smooth muscles. And that is what makes the urinary bladder distensible. Distensible means it can stretch, it is stretchable. And therefore, it can accommodate somewhere between 500 ml to 1 liter of urine at a time. Now, the region where the ureters open into the urinary bladder is somewhere here where my mouse pointer is. So the region where they open is a trigone. It is somewhat a triangular structure represented by those pink lines that I have drawn here. Okay. So trigone is the region in which the ureters open into the urinary bladder. So if I just highlight the small openings to make it more clearer to you all, here is where one ureter will open, and this is the region where the other ureter would open. So this completes the trigone. Just at the junction of the trigone and the urethra, you see these two small green colored structures that have been highlighted. They are the male internal urethral sphincters. These internal urethral sphincters are basically involuntary in nature. That is, they are not under the control of our will. But there is another set of sphincter that is called as the external urethral sphincter, which is definitely under the control of our will. But these external sphincters used to be involuntary up to the age of 2 years. So in infants up to the age of 2, the external as well as the internal sphincters are involuntary, whereas in adults, the external urethral sphincter is voluntary, while the internal is involuntary. I repeat, I clarify again. The external urethral sphincter is voluntary, while the internal one is involuntary. Sphincters, those who do not know, are basically kind of involuntary circular muscles that can regulate the opening and closing of a certain junction. You'll have studied about the sphincters in the digestive system also. For example, the pyloric sphincter, the cardiac sphincter. So there also the function of the sphincter was to regulate the movement of food and in a particular direction. Now coming to the urethra. Urethra is the final duct that carries the urine out of the urinary bladder for expulsion. It opens at the tip of the penis in case of males, while in females, it opens separately in the vestibular region. Now, it is shorter in females as compared to males. In males, the length of the urethra overall is about 16 to 20 centimeters, while in females, it is roughly about 4 centimeters. So here you all can clearly see the length of the female urethra is far more shorter as compared to the male urethra. And you can see the walls of the urinary bladder having a very thick layer of muscles. That is what makes the urinary bladder highly distensible. Now focusing more on the kidneys, each kidney is covered by a fibrous capsule. Beneath the fibrous capsule is the adipose layer, which basically acts like a cushion for protecting the kidneys. The kidneys also are protected, mind well, by the 11th and the 12th rib. If I again position the 11th and the 12th rib here, if I just bring in the skeletal system, so you can see here, the 11th and the 12th pair of ribs provide partial protection to the kidneys. Now, as far as each kidney is concerned, now let us look at its longitudinal section. Longitudinal means when you slice it vertically. So let us now just hide this part here. And that's the longitudinal section now that we are seeing here. So in the longitudinal section, each kidney shows two distinct regions. I repeat, each kidney in the longitudinal section shows two distinct regions. One region of the kidney that you can see, that is the outer region, is called as the cortex. I'll just label that here. So that's the cortex. And then the inner region is called as the medulla. The outer region cortex is dark and granular. Granular means it appears dotted. And the inner region is light and striated. The striations are arranged in a conical fashion. Those conical striations are called as the renal pyramids because they are somewhat conical in structure. It is called as the pyramid. Now, when we talk about each pyramid, you can see here, I'll just highlight one of the pyramids. The broader base of the pyramid faces the cortex. Sorry. Yeah, you can see here. The broader base of the pyramid faces towards the cortex. And the narrow apex of each pyramid faces towards the renal pelvis. Here somewhere we have the pelvis. Okay. So the narrow apex of each pyramid, which is also called as the renal papilla. I repeat, the narrow apex of each pyramid is also called as the renal papilla. That papilla faces the pelvis. Yeah, so that's the papilla. So the papilla faces the pelvis. Now, each renal pyramid opens into the minor calyx. The minor calyx, the minor calyces will join and rejoin to form a major calyx, and the major calyces will finally join to form the renal pelvis or open into the renal pelvis. The major calyces will finally open into the renal pelvis. Now, I'll focus on these parts in a while from now. So the first thing that we'll be seeing now is the minor and the major calyx. So here you all can very distinctly see the green colored part, that is the renal papilla, which opens into the minor calyces. Calyces is plural of calyx. These minor calyces fuse and join to form the major calyces, and the major calyces finally open into the renal pelvis. The renal pelvis then continues outward as the ureter. So the ureter basically originates from the pelvis region. So this is about the longitudinal section of each kidney. One more point that I would like to point out is that the extensions of the cortex in between the medulla are called as the renal columns of Bertini. They're called as the columns of Bertini. So these green colored highlighted regions are the extensions of the cortex in between the medulla region. So those regions, those extensions are called as the renal columns or the column of Bertini.